Hey guys, I'm Josaway, and I'm going to show you an easy way to get a flying scout in the early to mid game of Mars First Logistics. Unlock the parts shown on the screen and grab the numbers you need, and then head into the design space. Start by attaching your fuel tanks to the vehicle base. I'm using 8 here. You want to build a lightweight vehicle because you want good fuel efficiency, but you need enough fuel to be able to get some distance. Once you have the fuel tanks attached, give yourself some length. We want a little bit of distance from the center so that the torque of our adjustment boosters works well. What we're going to be doing here is placing down a sensor. We're going to be binding this sensor to a virtual port that's going to automatically fire the adjustment booster when the vehicle tilts to the left, because this is going to be, or I guess this is the right wing. But what happens with the sensor is when it's pressed, when it touches something, it's going to activate the virtual port that we're going to bind it to. The next piece we're going to use is the 360-degree gimbal. This continues to try to point in the direction that it starts in when your vehicle spawns. So as long as you spawn on flat ground and it's pointing up, it'll rotate to try and keep that yellow part pointing up. Here, I'm attaching these 90-degree bends, and you can see there's a 15-degree rotation on the attachment point to the gimbal, which angles it up ever so slightly. We're binding here to the virtual port by using the A and D keys after going into the control setup. You can click the part and then use the A and D keys to switch the virtual ports. This part of the wing has virtual port 1. We only want it to fire when the vehicle tilts to the right and that vehicle or that gimbal rotates the tapper down to touch the sensor. Here I'm copying that entire assembly. We're going to bind this to virtual port 2. You'll see here we go into the control configuration screen. I'm going to click on the sensor. And then I'm just going to tap the D key to navigate from virtual port 1 to virtual port 2. We'll bind the thruster to the same virtual port 2. Once you've done the same thing for the forward and backwards adjustment, I guess, what is it? It's, there's pitch and roll we're handling here. Yaw we're going to do in a minute. These are the forward and backwards are the pitches. You want those on ports 3 and 4, respectively. The other thing I did was I moved all the sensor controls to channel 20 so that they would be out of the way of any controls I wanted to place on this. Later on, I'm going to place a theodolite because you don't have a lot of lift with this, or the more lift you add, the less efficient the fuel is and the less distance you can get. But putting a theodolite on for a scout flying vehicle is pretty useful. You can use it to build signal towers, and you can use it to build monorails, which is pretty powerful. All right, so next up, we're going to start placing thrusters. So I'm giving myself a little bit of a framework to work with here. We're going to place our forward thrust. And this is the main forward thrust. We're going to point it backwards. You're going to want to bind this to a key, which you can do in the control configuration scene, or screen. I guess that's the word I was looking for. I like to bind to forward to T, yaw left to H, and yaw left to F. So what you'll see me doing here is I'm attaching adjustment thrusters here that are going to point backwards. And when I press the H key to turn the vehicle right, that left thruster will fire. These yaw thrusters are not very strong in this build. You might consider replacing them with either two auxiliary thrusters, or a full thruster. But the more weight you add, the less fuel efficient you are. There you can see me binding the controls for these thrusters. So instead of WASD, I use T, F, and H to steer when I'm flying, plus the spacebar for lift. And here I'm just adding some taxiing struts and wheels. Again, you want to use the lightest weight possible. You should not be spending a lot of time taxiing, but you do need some. That reminds me, speaking of the auto-stabilizing adjusters with the gimbals and the sensors, I use a 15-degree tilt or a 15-degree angle on the arm that's going to tap the sensor. I find that gives you a good balance between adjusting in flight and not having those constantly firing when you're taxiing on uneven ground. But you can adjust that with quarter-length spacers or a bigger angle. I'm using the race car wheels because they are the lightest and weight is a key concern. Once you have your build completed, obviously save it to a blueprint so you can recall it later. And because I'm using the F key as part of my steering, I'm going to rebind the screenshot key to another button that I'm less likely to press during flight. Here I started by going with the N key, and then I think I switched it to home. Okay, well, I didn't show that. Lastly, I'm placing my theodolite, and then we're going to take it out for a test flight. So, we're going to load up with fuel, and then we're going to take off. You can taxi a little bit with the wheels, or you can use your forward thrust with the T key to give yourself a little bit of space. You do need a little bit of a runway, not too much. But you'll see here, I'm just going to switch my hand from WASD to TFH. Going to load up on fuel. And then I'm going to push forward. That's the T key, pushing the forward thrust, and the space bar giving me lift. So as you can see here, the auto stabilizer is keeping me balanced. I'm not using any controls on the adjustment arms at the forward, back, left, and right. They're automatically firing. They're not perfect because I do have that 15-degree allowance. But as you can see, it's very easy to cross ground very quickly. Not the best landing here. But then I can bring my theodolite out and I can build myself a new signal tower. And with this build, I find it's very easy to get 6 to 7 kilometers distance. And hopping between points of interest to refuel means I can go basically anywhere on the map very quickly. Lots of room for improvement on this vehicle, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is this something you would use or build, or how would you change it? How would you fix it?